Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Today I have Abhijit Iyer-Mitra or Abhijit Iyer-Mitra. You make the permutation combination. He likes to be called either way. Abhijit Iyer-Mitra with me. We are going to talk about a very important evolving situation as far as the line of actual control is concerned. There has been some news reports coming out of China Times, and anybody who reads that news tends to read it with a ton of salt. Abhijit, what is the reality? How are things playing out? Is India going to give up Kailash Heights, which is supposedly a very strategic point, and everything around that? Can you please take it away and disabuse our viewers about what is the reality?
So what's been happening is that we're moving back to status quo as on November 2019, right? Everything we're seeing. So basically the nature of what had happened since then was, remember, the Chinese hadn't come past anywhere that they had come in Pangong. The maximum they reached was in 1998, when we had to divert troops because of the Kargil war. And they had come all the way up to Finger 4, which has since then been in their effective control. We send patrols, but like I reminded people, patrols is not control. You do patrols because you don't really control the area. It's quite the reverse. So what's happened is that they had started building these non-permanent structures exactly on the LAC in Pangong as it stood in 1998-99, but in other areas like Galwan and Spangur, they'd started building it where we can define the LAC sometime around April 2013. And why do I use April 2013? Because we saw a string of annexations happen. So our satellite data goes back to about 2003. That's where commercial satellite imagery starts getting available from. So from 2003 onwards, we see them keep coming in constantly up till April 2013. Right. Now, we're not able to say why it stopped in April 2013 and did not resume in April 2014, but it did not. So what has happened here is that we are seeing a return to as it was on November 2019, which is exactly the same situation as it was in April 2013. Right. So that is where we are seeing people withdraw to.
Now, the question that remains is Kailash Heights part of this area or it's a different area?
It's a different area.
Okay.
It's a different area. But what happens out here is that we are not seeing any Kailash Heights. We didn't see structures in the first place. So, it's like saying we are withdrawing from Kailash Heights when we went there. Right. I want to know what specific heights are being referenced because we haven't seen any existing structures in the Kailash area being removed, permanent or non-permanent. So I really don't know what these people are talking about, number one. Number two, we've done two specific things out here. We have established that China cannot build water blockage dams. They can build run-of-the-mill dams, that is to say that extracts electricity, but does not prevent or prevent the water from flowing or divert the water. Number one. Number two, the first thing we checked when we saw the Chinese withdrawals happening on the ground was to see how Indian infrastructure construction in Ladakh was carrying on, and it is carrying on fine. We're still seeing building material being taken to the foreground. We're seeing massive construction equipment remaining there, not being withdrawn, which means we have preserved our right to build infrastructure out there. So it is literally where it was as of November 2019. One, no blockage of water. Two, the permanent positions remain permanent. All non-permanent positions have, on the Chinese side, most non-permanent positions have been taken down. On the Indian side, in Spangur, they remain, the non-permanent positions that were built on hilltops remain, have not been taken down. And but the heavy artillery and things are gone on both sides. Up to a reasonable limit. They've been withdrawn by about, depending on how you calculate, between 4 to 7 kilometers. And number three, Indian infrastructure building activities continue unabated.
Okay, so let's take a look at this is the Ladakh part. Let us take a look at what is happening in Arunachal Pradesh. So we talked about construction coming up between November of last year and now, where along the river bank, you suddenly saw a crop of buildings that came up on the Chinese side. Is this really a Potemkin village or is it for real?
It's mostly a Potemkin village. See, because the Chinese tactic is you annex territory, then you build facts on the ground, then you annex more territory, right? And then you build new facts on the ground in that annexed territory. So there is no logical reason for there to be a village. They just decide to construct a village to reinforce the territorial claims and grab more land. But that's about it. We have to be cautious about it. But I just want to repeat, as of now, we have a lot of evidence of incursions, which is to say they come in and go out, but none of a permanent settlement occupation, even with temporary structures right now on the LAC as we understand it.
I mean, India also does these incursions up and down the line. It's not like, it's a one-way thing, isn't it?
Yeah, except we don't do it so aggressively and we don't do it in a sustained manner. We don't put up structures, which all probably needs to change, but it won't change.
Well, if they have built a Potemkin village and if they're not inhabiting it, India can go and sleep there too. It's just a shallow stream across.
You can. I mean, it's not that shallow. It's quite a violent stream.
I see.
But yes, you technically could. The issue is that, it increases the pain. They will say it can be a ghost village for all you know. Right. Surprisingly, none of the imagery we have actually shows people out there, which is very strange. It's a daylight image and there's not a single person out on the roads. So that's why I said it is a Potemkin village. The problem is, if you take it, they will say Indian troops came, they killed everyone and they've all been washed downstream, so they've killed 200 Chinese citizens. What are you then going to do? Building infrastructure creates its own complications. Building pakka structures creates its own complications. So that's what they've done.
All right, last question before we wind up this conversation. What is your count on the Galwan conflict? How many Chinese were killed?
I wrote about this. It was somewhere between 60 to an upward limit of 90, if I recall. Right. This was based purely on helicopter movements and ambulance movements that we managed to see and the evacuation capacity. And mind you, why is there such a range gap between 60 and 90? It's based on minimum. Like minimum in an ambulance is 1, maximum is about 2, depending on the size. Sometimes it can be up to 4. But based on those figures and the helicopter evacuations we saw. Now remember, these were satellites that were going hour by hour, not every hour. It was 4-hour window, 6-hour window, 8-hour window. It was what we were able to see on satellite and count. Some of them might have even been traveling empty, or they might have been even more than that. But 60 to 90 is the general range.
Thank you very much, Abhijit. Viewers, if you want to understand how satellite mapping works, it's mentioned in some detail in my book, Who Painted My Money White. You're welcome to see it. Abhijit read it. He didn't object to what I described. So I suppose that then that is there is an element of truth in it. But as always, make your own decisions. Abhijit has very in-depth, very stable knowledge in my opinion, and I have found him to be fairly accurate. But you are reading all sorts of things all over the place in social media and in the mainstream channels. You need to look for data, you need to look for facts, and we hope that when you look at our videos, that it helps you make up your mind on what is the reality on the ground. For some reason, both sides are playing coy here, so neither one is saying much. It's because of the nature of the line of actual control. It is not, there is no barbed wire fence. That is the interesting thing about India and China, because India doesn't accept that China can occupy Tibet. I mean, they'll officially not say this, but the fact that there is a government in exile in Dharamshala tells you that India doesn't believe that China is in possession of Tibet. But anyway, I'm digressing here. Thank you very much, Abhijit, and I'll see you soon. prime time PGurus at 9 p.m. Ask Abhijit. Do join in. And thanks once again, Abhijit. And I'll talk to you later. Namaskar.
Well, well, very well.